How's it, Shay? I can't believe it's another month. This
I don't
last
even know, me
these
neither.
last 4 weeks has been like, what the hell? Feels like the other day we recorded.
It does. And next month, well, tomorrow, 30 days no, not tomorrow, the next day, is kind of the end of my maternity leave as well. So it does feel
Oh
very
wow.
real this last this last month.
Are you
And
ready to go back?
I
Because
am,
like
I
when you,
am. I enjoy my
yeah.
work. I mean, I say this now with great bravado. Who knows how I feel? But no, I am. It's going to be cool to use my brain again, earn some money again. It's also nice.
But you haven't. I mean,
So
you've been on maternity leave, but you haven't kind of been on maternity leave. Like you're still replying to emails
no.
and that kind of thing. You naughty
Yeah, I've
girl.
done bits and pieces here and there. I've just said to clients, look, I'm just going to need a really long deadline on this. I can't promise to get this to you tomorrow. So,
Yeah.
which I think is probably a good exercise to go through anyway, in terms of, I mean, so I did do a job that was kind of urgent. And obviously, I then got everything done on time. And 2 weeks later, and I haven't had any feedback yet, El
Of course.
Clasico.
Yes.
So,
Yes. As we were
it's
speaking
urgent, it's
offline,
urgent, it's urgent until it's not.
yeah, as we were speaking offline, just before you joined the call, I got a message from a client, and I've created mass confusion because I've invoiced for a job I'm still waiting on a second revert for, and uh, yeah, now it's created mass confusion because why am I invoicing? And I'm like, well, tomorrow's the end of the month, so I want my money. You've been sitting on the feedback on the second draft since like 2 weeks ago. So 2 weeks seems to be like a theme with clients at the moment.
Yeah, 2 weeks, and that's kind of the minimum. It does kind of stretch on past that, but maybe it's another one we need to put a pin in for a discussion on how do you make sure that projects don't drag out forever and ever and you
Mm,
never get paid? Or how do you
yeah,
make sure you get paid even if the project, because also it becomes a bit of a scheduling conflict too, because you've set now the time aside to work on something that week and then you don't have feedback and then you're left picking up the pieces at a later stage where you might have other work coming in. So yeah, it
yeah.
was.
That's a good topic, and we could probably add to that one the like how often or how aggressively do you chase a pilot project when you've done the work and
Yeah.
you've been paid for it, but it was a pilot and you don't hear from the client again, like how. But yes, look at us going off track, and we're only been recording for like 2 minutes
There's
already.
just so
So,
much to talk about.
let's dive into today's topic, which is niching. And we discussed this, and we thought it would be a very interesting one for the audience because I'm pro niching, and Shay is, I suppose, are you anti niche or you
I
just?
think anti is a strong word. The word I tend to use is niche resistant.
Hmm,
Um, So no, not anti, certainly a place for it, and we'll get into all of that. But and as we'll also get into, there's totally different types of niching too. So
hmm.
and some of that I'm very pro. So
Yeah.
we'll dive in.
All right. So let's start with the industry niching, because that seems, when you speak niching, people think automatically
Mm,
like you write in a specific industry. I, for example, am a technical writer, so I tend to kind of err on the technical side, but not necessarily I write across all kinds of industries, but it's more kind of the content that I'm niched in. So, when you say niche, what are you referring to?
So for me, niche has come to mean the type of work that I do. So I was working when I was in my full-time role, I was working as a marketing manager. So I was touching all different types of media and marketing and different tactics, etc. So when I started my freelance career, I kind of took that and rolled with it and offered my services almost as like a satellite or outsourced marketing manager. And I was doing a whole bunch of different stuff, a bit of socials, a bit of email, a bit of Google ads, a bit of SEO, a bit of writing. And eventually what I realized when I looked at the clients that I enjoyed working with and the clients that I didn't enjoy working with so much, it actually a trend turned out to be that I enjoyed working with the clients for whom I was mainly doing writing work, which it wasn't a great surprise to me once I'd figured it out, because that's my love and that's what I enjoy doing. And I mean, I studied journalism and I did a writing specialization in my degree. So, it does align with what I'd say my main skill set is. I just kind of landed up in marketing, how you kind of land up in marketing when you're in a full-time role and you're expected to do a bit of everything.
Yeah.
So that's how it happened for me. And then once I'd had that realization, I slowly just started letting go of those clients that I was doing the full marketing management, handing them over. And now I'll still dabble here and there in a bit of Google ads or something like that. But so for me, niching means writing and applying my SEO knowledge to my writing, to my content writing.
Okay.
And you, how did you land in an industry specific niche?
So it was like most things that I tend to do. It happened by accident. So I was pre-COVID, post retrenchment. I was very focused on the travel industry because that's my background. I worked in travel for 15, 16 years, and so I had the network and the contacts, etc., etc. And then COVID hit, and travel went tits up. So I needed to reinvent myself really quickly. And at the time, I was working for one of these kind of they're a marketing agency, but they employ freelancers, and then essentially they do the sales and they dish the work out to
Okay.
freelancers. It's like the dream for a freelancer. No sales, all work.
100%.
Yeah. So they came through to me and they asked me, do I know anything about AI? And I'm like, well, I know the basics. I mean, I've never lied about my skill set. I said, I know the basics. I'm not an expert, but depending on what they are looking for, I can probably get on board with what they're looking for pretty quickly. And yeah, from there it's kind of spiraled, and I'm all kinds of in the very technical sector now. So AI, chemical fibers, solar power, electromechanics, like using code to open and close little input output jobs that control machinery and that kind of thing. And yeah, that's I've seemed to have built up a reputation now for dealing with those sort of industries. But yeah, I'm very transparent. Again, I'm not an expert in any of this stuff. So I'm niched, but it does just because I've niched doesn't mean that I'm an expert in engineering. So or computer stuff. Like you sent me your internet speed, and it was like, is this a good internet speed? I'm like, I don't know. Like it looks a bit slow. But
I mean, when you see zeros, I guess one can assume.
yeah. So
But how did you take, I mean, did you have any how did you take a bit of expertise from your background, or did you just dive in and figure it out?
Initially I dived in and figured it out, but and this is kind of, if someone is looking to do industry niching and they're really interested in a specific industry, leverage your network as far as possible. I've got people, I mean, my brother and my dad are both engineers. My dad is in the science field as well. So I've got people that I can pick up the phone and be like, what is this like air pressure diffuser thing? And they can explain it to me, and from that gives me a starting point. And it's different from researching online. I mean, now we've got AI and we've got Google. You can Google these things and figure it out yourself. But if you've got a little bit of base knowledge, it's easier to build from. So yeah, I leverage my network quite a lot. I've got IT people and other AI clever people that I can phone as well. But I when I've got a project, I know that I can do it because I can do the content they're looking for. The subject matter is just a matter of research. So pick up the phone, speak to someone, and use that as a starting point.
Full disclosure, I just lost you there, thanks to jinxing with the
Oh, sorry.
with the internet speed. So I'm going to have to listen to the podcast to hear what most of that said, but I think I caught the highlights reel at the end. Basically, what you said is you make it up. You research and are transparent about what you know, what you don't know, and you make it work.
For example, I actually had someone approach me yesterday that wants to update their SOPs, their standard operating procedures. They work for a very technical company, and they want to bring their SOPs in line with ISO. Now, weirdly, I actually did a podcast about 3 years ago on ISO standards, and so I know a little bit about that, and I know what SOPs are. So for me to marry those two things together, it's just kind of finding out what the scope is, and it's not going to be a problem for me to
Mm.
make stuff up that is going to be factually correct. So yeah, it's but get me to sit down in front of a computer and write a fictional story, for example. I'm really terrible at that. Like, I have got zero talent in terms of the fiction stuff. So yeah, I suppose growing up the way I did, I have got like a base knowledge of engineering. I mean, we used to watch my dad tinker with cars in the garage and that kind of thing. So, I mean, I suppose it was only a matter of time.
And now,
um,
and your brother's an engineer, isn't he?
yes, so he's a mechanical engineer. My dad's a mechanical engineer and a nuclear scientist. Like, I come from a super nerd family. My dad actually carries around a miniature periodic table in his wallet, and it says "Nuke is neat" on it. So growing up in a house like that, you don't
Okay.
stand much chance. But
That's
um, but
amazing.
yeah, I mean, for you, like, we've spoken about. So what do you do now in terms of with industry? Are you niched in an industry, or are you kind of generalist in terms of industry?
So very much generous. There's very little I won't do. And mainly if it is, it would be something that I'm not, I don't know, ethically aligned with, or if it's something super, super technical that I literally have no idea about. But I mean, these days, pretty much everything is Googleable, everything is interviewable, everything is learnable. And what you are bringing to the table a lot to your clients is a way of putting their technical or highly jargoned or niched information into a way that other people will understand a lot of the time.
Mm,
So sometimes from that perspective, I think it actually helps to have someone who isn't necessarily enmeshed in a specific industry, because then I can say, well, so I was having a meeting with a bunch of tax consultants the other day. And I mean, I pay tax. I do tax things, much as I would prefer not to. I do the things. So, I have a basic understanding, I would think. Um, and they were talking right over my head. So I just said, hey, whoa, 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 wait a second. I don't know what this means. I have no idea what you're talking about. And it was quite an aha moment for them to see, okay, this person who is educated, does tax things, actually has no idea what we're talking about, because
mm,
they're using their little tax nerd jargon. And yeah, so I think sometimes actually having a third party who can get it but doesn't necessarily know exactly what you're talking about can actually really help your clients to figure out how best to say things to speak to the people, to their target market. So
yeah.
there's that element of it. Also, I get bored. I think that's why I was never really able to stay in a full-time role long enough. So by sort of taking on multiple industries and projects, I get to learn a lot, and that's what I love. So, um, yeah, I love just getting those random nuggets of information that serve you well in a quiz evening or around the braai. And someone will be like, "How the hell do you know about that?" And you say, "Well, wrote an 800-word blog post, so I had to become an expert in about half an hour." So
Yes, yeah.
so that's what I enjoy. And I also love working with agencies. As we've said, it's wonderful when someone else is doing the sales and the admin and I can just do the writing part. So for a lot of agencies that aren't very niche, industry niche specific, it's quite nice for them to have someone they know they can rely on to say, okay, I need you to write about, I don't know, a solar project, and now I need you to write about lingerie, and you can do both.
Mm,
So that's why industry wise, I've chosen not to niche down. But I can also see the benefit, as you have, of now you are perceived as an expert
mm.
in this particular field, and you're more in demand and able to charge more as a result. So it's, yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, the
that's
whole.
that is one of the huge pros. And again, when I started writing freelance, it's not something that I intentionally set out to do, was become a technical writer. In fact, I was terrified of being a technical writer because, holy crap, like, I know they say that if you're not the smartest person in the room, you're not learning anything, but like, very smart people really intimidate me. So it was very intimidating, and I kind of just, like I say, fell into it. And I do have, like I said, that support structure, and I've got quite good at like researching that kind of thing. But yeah, it's um, I've just lost my train of thought.
We were saying how you can charge more and you're more in demand
Yes,
because you have that niche specialization.
that's correct. So calling myself a technical writer, when people are looking for B2B writing and they want like case studies or thought leadership pieces or product features that act as multi-purpose articles that they can break up into sections and target different audiences with it, that's where they are going to look for a technical writer with my skill set rather than just a general copywriter. So, the smaller your niche is, you're going to get less competition from other writers or whatever your. I mean, we're speaking writing here. I'm not sure if anyone other than a writer is listening to this, but
How dare you?
if I mean, if you're a designer and your design work is specifically 3D animation, and that's the way you market yourself, then you're going to be top of the pile when people are looking for a 3D animator. They're not necessarily going to take somebody who is a graphic designer to do a 3D project. So yeah, there's a lot more opportunity to get work. The pay is a lot higher as well, because once you've seen a specialized, you can charge more. But you need to obviously have the skill set to back up those credentials. I mean, you can't call yourself a technical writer or charge the earth if the output that you're providing is like really subpar. You're going to get found out quite quickly. So yeah, but there is, I mean, yeah, I also, in a way, I think that we're speaking about the same thing. We're both generalists, but kind of we've niched in different areas.
And I wanted to ask you, does the pro of being a smaller pool ever become a con, in that, well, there isn't enough technical work to go around?
So at the moment, no. I think that I'm kind of in that sweet spot at this stage. But if ChatGPT launches like ChatGPT white paper, and all I do is write white papers about technical subjects, then I'm screwed. So you have to obviously be careful about niching too far up the chain, and being replaced by an AI that can do exactly what you're doing. So
And also looking at
if
the
you are niching,
market, because, you might be writing, I don't know, for like geriatric water sports, like, you're not going to have a huge market that you are trying to get anyway. So I think you have to also be quite circumspect when you're actually niching down and choosing what that industry is.
yeah. If you've got a specific interest, follow that interest and see where it takes you. But yeah, I mean, trying to let me ask you another question. Let's change. Sorry, my brain went in a completely different direction. So, do you have a particular genre that you write for? So, you mentioned tax consultants. You mentioned something else that reminded me of, I used to write for a client that was a erectile dysfunction medication, which was like my nightmare. But I mean, when you're writing that kind of thing, do you like, I'm sorry, I'm spacing today. I'm so
Hey,
sorry, Shay. Like, I'm so spacey
no,
today.
keep it in. This is real. It's real. Freelancers are human too, people. Okay, I'm just going to chime in, and if this wasn't what you were asking, then feel free to edit me out. But
Cool.
so I find, because of what I tend to write, which tends to be website copy, tends to be blog posts, that kind of dictates the client that I get. So for my blog post, for example, most of the clients are B2B. I think because that is a marketing tactic that is used more in a B2B setting, maybe not. Whereas social media copy perhaps is something that's a little bit more, not exclusively at all, can be a little bit more of a focus for B2C. Website copy, I guess that could be everyone and anything. And I do find that when it comes to website copy, it really is anything from the erectile dysfunction to the, I don't know. Luckily, I haven't had to do that one, but I don't know, the beautician down the road, the lady who does the lash extensions. So website copy, very broad. So I think the type of work that you do also tends to dictate the kind of clients that you get. If you were to put a gun to my head and say, who do you like working with the most? I would definitely say agencies. So I guess I've kind of niched that way, where it's more like they're outsourcing their writing to me versus me having to be sort of the coal face front and center with the client and dealing with the admin and all of that. So I guess that's an industry in itself, really. Although I haven't specifically marketed myself as such, I have found, and that's how my niching and a lot of niching actually happens. And probably, sorry, this is another topic, but something I think is important to talk about that you've touched on is how it's probably not a good idea to go in and say, this is going to be my niche. This is exactly what I'm going to do. Both you and I have, in different ways over the years, just niched down a little bit and little bits and little bits at a time as you realize where the money is, what you enjoy, who's willing to pay it. And yeah, so I think that's an important point to make too, is not to, if you're a new freelancer especially, or if you've been freelancing forever and been a generalist and all of a sudden decide, okay, I need to start niching. Take what you know already in order to inform that.
Let's speak about generalists quickly, because from a high level perspective, generalists can switch direction really quickly. Like today, you're writing about erectile dysfunction. Tomorrow, you're writing about how many kilowatts you need in a home solar system. You can switch direction really quickly. When you're learning stuff and you are a generalist, you tend to pick up a little bit of stuff here, a little bit of stuff there, and you can actually take that. I call it a skills transfer over to a different market. So, for example, if something I've just mentioned that I'm not very good at fiction writing, but I've recently become very interested in structuring things as like a 3-act structure, like traditional books or movies or whatever. That I have discovered works amazingly well for case studies. So, you can bring these kind of generalist skills that you've learned into what you're doing right now without too much of a problem. And that it helps being a generalist to do that, because if you're completely niched in technical writing, you're not necessarily going to be experimenting with bringing stuff over from a different genre that you've written for, or a different market.
That's a good point. And even if it isn't a conscious, so you've consciously decided you're going to try the 3-act structure, but even if you didn't consciously decide that, it can almost happen by default that from what you've learned there, you can bring it over. And I mean, the same can be said, people always say, for reading books, for example. You're not consciously thinking, oh, what am I learning as I read each line of this fiction or nonfiction book? But that knowledge is kind of soaking in, and use of vocab and sentence structure and pacing, and that can come through your writing naturally. So for me, for example, I must admit, I'm not very intentional about thinking, oh, what I've done here, I must apply here. But I think those light bulbs do go off in the back of your brain without you even realizing it a lot of the time.
We've spoken about industry niching. Have you niched in terms of the type of content that you write? So, for example, I have kind of niched more into long form content because social media content wants to make me slit my wrists. So I now only do social content as part of a campaign that is backed by long form content. I just find that the time it takes to write a social media post and the number of reverts that are required to get it exactly where the client wants, it's not worth what you're being paid to do it. So I'm definitely erring to the kind of the longer form content. Are you still kind of generalized across the board? You'll do anything, or is there something specific that you prefer doing?
So, similar to you, I've discovered social media content isn't my jam. I don't mind doing some ghostwriting on LinkedIn because that is a platform that I actually use. I'm so far behind if it comes to anything. I mean, Facebook, does anyone even use Facebook? Instagram, I don't have. TikTok, I have no clue. So, except for what I see on Facebook coming through from TikTok. So, basically a boomer. So, I don't want to. I'm behind when it comes to social media trends, etc. So I wouldn't trust myself to write social copy, even if I really wanted to, unless, like you say, it's part of a greater campaign that I'm working on. Something that I do enjoy, I don't get to do it all the time, but I love writing email campaign copy because it really challenges you to think creatively and, make things very tight and concise while still attention grabbing and getting people to convert. I love doing that. Website copy, also love for similar reasons. Also, you get to learn a lot when you write website copy. And then I do a lot of blogs. So that's kind of, generally the longer form stuff. I don't do a lot of, so maybe it's worth discussing the difference between a copywriter and a content writer just quickly. So I tend not to do a lot of copywriting. I do more content writing. So my definition probably isn't exactly Oxford Dictionary style, but basically when I think about it, I think of copy is short advertising, more sort of one-liners, headings, that kind of thing. And content is where you are writing. So copy is more advertising writing. Content is more marketing writing, where you're going through a slow approach of educating people about the product or about the industry or whatever it is before you get them to buy. Improve that.
So like copy is selling and content is educating or entertaining or informing. Yeah.
There we go. Thank you. You are switched on.
Oh, geez, I don't know what's going on with me today, but yeah.
Well, you've just redeemed everything.
But yes, so I prefer the content stuff as well. I like putting together long form. I like I say, I'm playing a lot with 3-act structure at the moment. That's my jam. And well, I'll get tired of it and I'll try something new in a couple of months because that's how I keep myself entertained, is like changing the structure of content. But I'm probably not the best copywriter, but I am a pretty good content writer. And I think that those skills, while they overlap, they are two completely different skills.
And again, I think as we keep saying, sometimes it does take some time to know and figure out which one you're actually better at and which one you prefer. And the ways you can do that is, firstly, just enjoyment factor. Secondly, client satisfaction. And then the third one is the time it takes you to, which, sometimes you can agonize over something too long, for longer than you should. But if it's something that you tend to be putting off doing a lot and procrastinating, it might not be your jam.
Yeah.
And the same applies to an industry. Maybe that's how you learn. You're not that interested in something. But then there's also the element, as you've mentioned, of you can find it boring. You can put it off. But if you're getting paid a lot of money for it.
Well, that's the thing. And weirdly, I had this conversation with my brother yesterday. Unfortunately, boring pays bills. So, you have to find the interesting bits in the boring bits. And I do find what I do interesting. I know I was like, I wish I could write other stuff other than AI, but I mean, that's the bread and butter at the moment. And I do find it interesting. I mean, I'm learning stuff that I never thought I would ever say, never mind that, existed. Like I wrote an article on Monday about, the architecture of data pipelines, like that. Those are words that I never thought I would ever put together
in the same sentence. Oh my gosh.
But it is interesting. But I think when it comes to learning about the industry as well, when I started getting into the technical writing, I thought that I would pick up something called Arduino. And for those that may not know, probably most people, because I'm a giant nerd and most people are not. But Arduino is like little circuit boards that you can create like electronic devices with, but then on the back end there's a software aspect as well, so it does coding and whatever. So very, very kind of rudimentary example is you can create a little circuit that has a light, and you write a program to make the light turn on and off, or strobe,
Oh.
or like like a robot, for example. So I went on this Arduino course. I spent a hell of a lot of money on the starter kit, and I was quite into it. And about 3 lectures in, I was like, "This is the most boring thing I've ever like." I would rather go
Okay, I
outside
know
and
how to
work
make
in the
it
garden.
strobe now. I'm done. Disco
um,
done. Let's move on.
exactly. Like I don't want to spend my Sunday afternoon like trying to program a robot,
Oh, thank
or
God.
a
You
traffic
are
a traffic a traffic light. I'd rather watch anime or some other nerd activity.
good. I was
But
getting worried about you.
um, so go down these things. Udemy is a great resource for picking up kind of baseline foundation knowledge. A lot of the Udemy courses are also really boring. I did one on what was it called? User interface design structures or something,
Okay.
and it was really super boring. But like I know the basics of like user interface, like so basically looking at a website, how to lay stuff out. It does help. So I'm not an expert, but when I'm speaking to a designer now about a website
Mm.
project, I can provide my 2 cents worth. And so that's what I was talking about earlier about transferable skills. You don't have to be an expert in what you are writing about. You can bring expertise from other aspects of your life through to what you're doing, and that usually helps create something a little bit more unique than a typical technical
Mm.
writer or a typical social media writer, or so on.
And something to add to that element of research that probably us millennials really hate to hear, but talking to people, interviewing, it doesn't have to be a formal, you know, instead of just researching or Googling or texting or emailing, actually talking to someone who knows a lot about what they do is sometimes you get more from that half an hour conversation than you could have got from about 5 hours of research. So
Mm,
sorry, sometimes we just have to pick up the phone. It sucks,
yeah.
but it
Well,
works.
um, I suppose if I had to like say what my niche is, especially in terms of the content type, my absolute specialty is interviewing a subject matter expert and then creating a piece of content out of that interview. So that's where I rock. If you just give me like a encyclopedia of
Mm,
information, I'm going to try and shortcut my way through that thing
mm,
to try and extract the bits of information, and it's going to probably be subpar. But if I speak to somebody, and you give me that encyclopedia of information, then I can marry the two, and you'll get a much better piece out at the end. So,
mm.
yeah, I'm not an expert, and I'm quite happy to say this to people as well. I believe that transparency is key to everything. I'm not an expert in AI or engineering or solar power or whatever, but my expertise is distilling your expertise into consumable content for marketing. So that's where my skill set kind of overlaps with yours. Um,
Brilliant. So
I
I
don't,
think, I
I don't,
mean, mm.
yeah.
No, go ahead.
You don't have to be an expert in a subject, whether it is technical or erectile dysfunction, to write a, a worthwhile piece on that thing. You just have to, you know, distill the information that you receive from others.
I was going to say the same thing.
Oh. um, right. So let's talk about niching in terms of marketing ourselves as freelancers. Um, how do you market yourself? Like, are you on all platforms? Are you focusing on just one or two? Are you trying to hit your bases with written, video, audio? Are you concentrating on just one? I was trying to hit all platforms. I was trying to do all different types of media as well. And the amount of time that takes is just insane. So now I have like a bit of video stuff, and I post on LinkedIn from time to time. I mean, it's ridiculous to try and be on everything and create everything. So I'm video LinkedIn and YouTube and that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, I've closed my Facebook account. I don't want people finding me on there, and I'm not active. So
Exactly.
yeah, how do you approach marketing yourself? Like, how have you niched the market?
So, I mean, that's the exact advice when clients ask about that kind of thing. It's don't try be everywhere. You'll just wear yourself out and you'll leave, especially as a freelancer, you'll have no time to work on actually running your business and doing what pays the bills. So for me, it's all about the low hanging fruit of what you enjoy and what doesn't take that much time. So for me, while I've been on maternity leave, I haven't been very active, but I will post on LinkedIn, and it's definitely been helpful. I've learned a lot by being on the platform. I've definitely got leads through the platform. So I know that that's worked. I do have a Facebook group, but that's less sort of labor intensive from my side than it is just a platform for fellow freelancers to engage, ask each other questions, post jobs and that kind of thing. So that's kind of a low impact activity. I do send email. I was sending emails once a week. So for me, it's very much written. I am not a huge, I mean, I love doing the podcast, but in terms of video, it's not really my jam. I never feel very authentic over video. And I mean, I'm a writer. I express myself through writing. So I think the platforms that lend themselves to writing, like LinkedIn, versus an Instagram, for example, where you need to be a bit more visual, or video related, it's not for me. So I think knowing what your skills are and also what you want to get out of it. So for me on LinkedIn, I don't actually talk about writing as much as I do about freelancing, because that's what I want my expertise to be seen as on, to other freelancers, etc., to promote sales of my book. So instead of talking about writing, I talk more about freelancing, and found that there's a much more of a captive audience on LinkedIn around freelancing than there is necessarily. I mean, let's be honest, like most of our clients, they're not going on LinkedIn looking for copywriting advice or tips, or they don't care. They want someone else to do it for them. So that's why I've seen LinkedIn as a good platform to engage with peers, versus trying to talk too much to a particular profession or speak to my clients. And yeah, that's about it, really. And that in itself, I mean, it doesn't sound like a lot, but it still takes a fair amount of time if you're going to do it properly.
Yeah, yeah. Content creation is very, very labor intensive, and that's why I've kind of pulled back. So I try and,
Mm,
I mean, maybe we're going into more kind of marketing rather than niching, but I suppose we're niching our
as
marketing.
we do.
Um, but,
This podcast is
but
not very niche.
no, this podcast has been all over the show, and I've been able to string three sentences together. I'm so sorry, guys. But yeah, the content creation is super labor intensive. So, like, if you can, look at trying to hit multiple pieces of content by creating one thing. So, like this podcast, for example, will be out on YouTube. It'll be out on audio streaming platforms as well. It'll get broken down into clips, which I then share on Shorts and on LinkedIn. So this one piece, this one conversation is you're getting more bang for your buck if you want to say that. But generally speaking, I really struggle coming up with what to say in marketing. As you know by now, I'm a super nerd. I'm not really good at putting myself out there. And I struggle to, like, what do you even post on LinkedIn? Like, and it's weird. Like, I find that people will react to the most random,
mm,
kind of off the topic. Or,
mm,
I mean, I posted something about Gay Pride Month and it went viral. And
mm.
it was like, it took me 3 minutes to write the post and stick a picture up. And there's other stuff that I've like created videos for and all that kind of thing. And I think it's got like 4 impressions. So it's like I don't really put much effort into my marketing. I must be honest. I just what goes out, and well,
But I
oh,
think you make a good point about what people want to gain on social is authenticity. So by being authentic, that's actually the content that performs the best because, if you say you don't know what to post because you're a major nerd. If you own being a major nerd, that's actually the kind of content that people, because that's authentic and that's you and that's what people
true.
want to see. That's the difference between social media versus, I don't know, writing an email or whatever. That really is somewhere that your character can shine. And I think if we're
So
talking LinkedIn specifically, it's kind of the new Facebook. Let's be honest.
it is. It's definitely not as uptight as it used to be, but I still feel weird posting certain stuff there. Like this is a professional network. But
Agree.
leaning into the nerd thing, even the nerd posts don't get too much reaction. Like I did a
That's
really
disappointing.
cool post about how Monopoly had two sets of rules, and it got, I don't know, about 3 likes, very few impressions. I posted a video of myself carrying a bag of cement, and again, like a million people thought that was, well, whether they
The
thought it was
best.
amazing or really dumb, like they all commented and reacted. So, it's
Uh,
like social media. I don't think people should put too much stock into, like, well, too much. They should put stock into it. They mustn't put too much effort into creating
agree.
social specific content. But you never
And
know
also,
what's going to take off.
yeah, ignore it's hard to do, but ignore the vanity metrics of the likes and comments and because I've had so many people who've contacted me who've never liked a post or never
Mm,
commented on anything saying, "Oh, hey, I see you've been active on LinkedIn," or "Oh, how are you doing?" And I know it's because they've just seen me there. For
mm.
whatever reason, even if they've never engaged themselves.
Yeah, vanity. Well, I call them stalkers, and
Yeah,
I'm one of them. I very seldom like or comment on another post, but I'm watching all the time.
but I'm there. Uh,
uh, Good times. So yeah, we've covered industries you write for, the actual content, how you market yourself. Is there anything else in terms of niching that we haven't covered? Probably a
Don't do
shit
it,
ton.
people. Don't do it. Just kidding.
Like, jokes aside, I think having this discussion, you being niche resistant and me like, no, you have to niche. I think that actually having this conversation, we are on the same page, like niche, but
Yes.
not too much. So
Yes.
it just goes, it just goes to show. I thought we were
Hashtag
so
niche,
different,
not
but
too much. Niche, but not too much. I love it. Okay, that's the title for the episode. Please, niche, but not too much.
niche, but not too much. Let me write it down, seeing as my memory clearly has a problem today.
Uh,
So takeaway from today,
well, other than niche, but not too
but
much.
not too much.
Know that there's no wrong way or right way because I feel often when you listen to the gurus, they're all about niche, 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 niche. Don't do it, people. Just be kind to yourself and let it happen naturally versus forcing yourself into a corner that you don't even know is going to be profitable or enjoyable or etc. So don't feel pressured to niche down is what I would say.
Yeah. My 2 cents, I wouldn't call it advice. It's just kind of what happened to me. Again, it did happen quite naturally. Enjoy what you do. Don't chase the money. I was just kind of lucky that I enjoy the writing that I do, and it does get paid a little bit better than stuff I was doing for the travel industry and erectile dysfunction. Um, I have to just comment, like, I don't know if you know, but I'm gay, and like writing about erectile dysfunction was very traumatic for me. But anyway, yeah, so
Oh.
enjoy what you do. Bring skill sets in from your generalist into your niche, and yeah, don't experiment. Like, don't back yourself into a corner too early. Niche, but
I'm still
not too
laughing.
much. Sorry.
Traumatized. Oh,
Uh,
sorry. Oh man.
oh, well, it's kind of like I had a client, I had to write perfume descriptions, and Well, I've just told you that I posted a picture of or a video of myself carrying a bag of cement because I've been building a patio. So that's
Yeah.
my vibe. And I had to write perfume descriptions.
Cement versus cologne. Yeah.
So yeah, happy
It's
days.
great.
We all have to go through that though. But
We
if
do.
you don't know whether that is your niche. I know that erectile dysfunction and perfume descriptions are not my niche. I knew that before, but I know for certain now.
Now I know.
Oh,
Oh man, too funny.
so yeah, this was a very disjointed conversation. Thanks, Shay.
I
I'm
think
glad
less
only
so than
I'm
you're saying. I had no upload speed, so who knows if anyone's even heard anything I've said.
well, yeah, it just goes to show that as well, I would never really say that I'm an expert, but as so-called experts, because we've got a podcast, we really just
mean,
make crap up as we go along.
we do, but because we've got a podcast, that totally makes us experts. So
of course,
yeah, no matter
yes.
what people say, ignore the haters.
Cool, thanks, Shay. This was a lot of fun. Good luck with your going back to
Thank
work
you
full
so
time.
much. Yeah.
And we'll do this again next month. Cool,
Uh,
thanks, Shay. See you next
Great.
month.
Thanks so much. Cheers.
Oh, we forgot to say the most important part of the podcast. If you enjoyed this, please share, like, subscribe wherever you're listening or watching. We'd love to have you on the audience.
Glad we've kept you this long.
Cool. Now goodbye for reals.
Goodbye for reals.